Excellencies, ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a distinct pleasure for me to be here. This is not my first time. I've been here since 2008, and I have lots of friends in the room, so I feel like at home. But what's exciting is in 2008, I came here for the first time, and we asked our good friend Dominique to, I was at UNESCO at the time. I was wearing the hat of a UNESCO officer, trying to present the work I did with Jim and my colleagues here on competency standards for teachers. And here we are 8 years later with a different hat. Now I'm working in academia and with the government, showing you a journey where we got this from theory to practice, and showing you an example of a country that is trying to put the concepts of knowledge society, learning societies into action. And that road has not been very smooth, not very easy, but let's have a look at what we have been trying to do. The current president of Egypt, who took office less than 2 years ago, is actually, we are blessed by having a president who puts education number 1, 2, and 3. And he formed a number of think tanks around him. He calls it specialized councils to think with him on the matters of education, research, economic affairs, social affairs. These photos are for my colleagues from the Council on Education and Research. Those councils work in close coordination with the ministries in the government and different stakeholders across the country. I'll share with you 2 projects that we have put on the ground in the last 16 to 18 months that show how we are trying to take the vision to action. The overarching umbrella here is a vision to move the society into what we call the Egyptian learning society. It's actually an advanced version even beyond knowledge society. It's a society where we try to have our young children live forever with their curiosity intact, with their inspiration, with their ability to learn and acquire knowledge. We're trying to build this, what we call the scientific Egyptian mind, the mind of a child who's able to be creative, to be imaginative, to critically think. We think this is the best way to face challenges many of us are facing today, from intolerance to fanaticism to the wrong perceptions. So it's always education that's the best solution for that. Building an Egyptian learning society has become a national vision that the president declared in December of 2014. And under that vision, there are lots of activities that are taking place. But before I go there, there is some brainstorming I had with many colleagues in this room, with the folks in Imagine Education, on what makes smart nations. And we like, of course, mathematicians and scientists like the periodic table, so we would just try to use that metaphor. We try to recognize political elements, human elements, and enabling elements, and see the intersection between those and the needs, the skills, and a new keyword we are focusing on called behaviors. We think that smart nations are the sum of a knowledge capital, skills that the citizens have, plus learning societies, societies that are dynamically learning, that are able to grow and advance and compete globally. There is so much to this diagram that I may not have time to show, but what I'm trying to show you is that the projects we are working on are actually pieces of that puzzle. I'll share with you 2 projects, one on professional development of teachers, because we need a new breed of teachers who are able to deliver the new ideas we have for curricula, for new assessment models, for different ways of delivering education to our young children. So that project is called Teachers First, and it's in that right bottom corner. And the Knowledge Bank is an exciting adventure that I want to share with you, which really helps promotes lifelong learning for everybody. So it really addresses the equity and social justice aspects towards building a learning society. So these are pieces of a puzzle. There are many more pieces to that puzzle, but I only have 10 minutes, and I don't want to bore you beyond that. Teachers First is not your average teacher training kind of thing. Actually, I mentioned I was here 8 years ago exactly to present UNESCO's ICT competency framework for teachers. It was one of the very first attempts to really define the skills that teachers should have in a technology-infested world, really. I mean, how do you use ICT in education properly? And it took us a while to interpret that kind of framework and take it into action. So what we are doing now is, I worked with my friend Jim Wynn, who's right here, on writing that framework. Now it's very exciting to take that to the ground, and we're trying to train 10,000 teachers in about 2,000 schools. Now Egypt has a lot of teachers. We have 1.7 million teachers, so 10,000 is a drop in the bucket, but it's the first wave of those teachers who will act as master trainers to their fellow colleagues. These teachers impact about 1 million students in their classrooms. That project is going to take us 18 months. It already started back in October. This is the competency framework for teachers that UNESCO published first in 2008 and second time in 2011, right here. It is made up of about 18 modules of, you can think of those as courses. For each of those boxes, we have a syllabus that defines what a teacher should know if they take that part of the framework. Now, typically, people would take that blueprint and produce training content aiming at giving certain skills to teachers, and then we test teachers, give them a certificate, and go home. But research showed that this kind of classical training doesn't necessarily change the behavior of teachers in their classroom. So, being the two authors of this framework, we thought maybe we should do it differently. We should take the blueprint, not map it to training content, but map it to teacher behavior in the classroom. So this project took the framework, interpreted it in terms of actual behaviors. And we don't take teachers out of the classrooms, we go to them in the classroom, coach them, and make sure their behavior really changes. We assess their behavior. We don't assess their skills through a classical kind of testing or assessment. So one teacher may take a month to do that, another may take 3 months. Everybody will have to succeed at the end. There is no failure in the program. But we started back in October with about 75 master trainers. We finished their training. And we are accepting 100 schools 5 days from now to enter that program, or we enter the schools actually, because we're not getting the teachers out of there. The idea is at the end, you have a group of teachers who can act as agents of change in the bigger pool of teachers in Egypt, and that's only a piece of a puzzle because we are thinking of curriculum change, of assessment changes. The teachers are a central player in that, and we need this new wave of teaching abilities. Now, there is a timeline for this that gets complicated because scaling up is, easier said than done. On the ground, it's not easy to synchronize all these activities and get to the teachers, take them away from regular work day and get them into that training, but it's so far going very well. The assessment part of this is also using technology, using smart cards. We have something like frequent flyer cards. So every teacher has one of those smart cards. We call it the learning credit card, where they assess themselves on a cloud-based system, and they are assessed by their peers and by their coaches. So there are 3 layers of assessment. And depending on the points each teacher accumulates, you can measure their performance in the class. These are pictures from the early parts of that project. So this is one big activity that's going on, and we expect that to scale up to over 1 million teachers very soon, within next year. But parallel to that, if we really want a learning society, and we keep talking about knowledge societies and learning societies, but we have to create this enabling environment. And we thought of putting together what we call now the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. I think it's a sort of a unique experiment. It really comes from the belief that investments in knowledge and innovation will pave the country's road to global competitiveness. But to really translate this into something every citizen feels, we went out and struck partnerships with about 25 of the world's most famous publishers and owners of high-quality knowledge. We went to people like Springer Verlag, Elsevier, Britannica, Cambridge and Oxford, and Thomson Reuters, and Discovery, and National Geographic, and so on, and actually acquired all kinds of content they have, whether it's journals, ebooks, digital curricula, technical computing software like MATLAB and Mathematica, and so on. But the important thing is we made this content available to every citizen in the country, not just within a library or a higher education institution, which is typically the case. Usually, the institutions that subscribe to those contents are national or private or public schools or certain big libraries, because it's an expensive thing to do and the content is too huge, so you have to pick. Now, what we did here was really acquire almost the entire content of those major publishers, and we have thousands and thousands of journals in every field you can imagine, ebooks, talk about technology really in the hands of everybody. And the technical part was also quite challenging, because you want to take all this content and put it in one portal that's very easy to use for a normal citizen that are not necessarily academics. We want to appeal to all age groups. We want to appeal to all interests. And the end result is what we call the Knowledge Bank. The Knowledge Bank is a portal that hosts all this material, video libraries, audio libraries, things in Arabic and English, and from all the way from novels to scientific journals of the highest impact factor possible, like the New England Journal of Medicine, like Nature, like Scientific American, and the likes. So we're covering a big ground with that. And the idea is this is not a contractual type of deal. This is a partnership with all the publishers, through which they are sharing with us the building of a learning society. So there is a calendar of events, 365 days. It's like the opera kind of calendar, you know. Every day you know what's happening around the country based on this bank, from teacher training to working with higher education faculty on writing high-impact journal articles, to lectures about copyrights, about plagiarism, about all kinds of things, about how to use the software in anatomy or in mathematics, in engineering courses, and so on. We hope that this is the basis on which we improve our basic education curricula quickly, and improve the quality and the ranking of our scientific research and ranking in international standings. It's really a very exciting project, and those are the names of some of the publishers we contracted for different kinds of content. And there is a timeline, but I suppose very few here would figure it out in Arabic, but it shows you that there is some work done. Now, that's done in a record time. It started in March of 2015, and it was launched 9th of January, about a week ago. And the full launch is 5 days from now, on the 23rd of January. This is really a picture when we signed the contracts with the CEOs of all this. It was an international kind of gathering. And to show you the political will that we have, the president of Egypt welcomed the publishers in the presidential palace, as you can see from this picture, which shows that this made knowledge and science first-page news. Usually this is not the common thing. I mean, newspapers look more about security issues and accidents and things like that. But to have this kind of talk, we found it to be nice, and we have ambitious plans to look at our assessment models, our curriculum, pedagogy, and rethink about school books and so on. And these pieces of the puzzle, I only showed you 2 pieces of a puzzle that has like 40 pieces, but we are moving from a road of thinking about knowledge societies and debating about it to really operationalizing that. And we are learning through this, and I think the learning itself is a good product, whether we are talking about teachers first, the project I mentioned about changing teachers' behaviors, or the knowledge bank. And we are going to look and monitor the analytics of the knowledge bank to see how the country responds to that. But the interesting, we debated, we were not sure how many will access this, like 100,000 people or a few million. I mean, it was hard. But in less than the first 24 hours, we had 8 million hits on this site. And that was quite refreshing and quite amazing without any marketing whatsoever, the kids. And the age group that is hitting this the most, 60% under the age of 18. So it is really showing us that the investment should be in the young people, should be in their life learning skills. And maybe for the interest of time, I'll stop here and leave you with a short video. Why a short video? Because I couldn't log in live and show you the site because it is restricted to IPs from Egypt. Everybody can access it as long as they are within the IP range of the country. So I couldn't access it from here, although I wanted to show it to you live. But maybe I'll show you a video that explains the subject, and thank you for your listening.